Yes.
I'm really happy that we're doing this.
We're doing it.
It's been something I've been thinking about for a long time.
That's good. So this is your brain baby here, Below the Noise. I am just here to assist, facilitate, etc. You will soon meet our head of HR. She will be with us shortly, but until that happens, I wanted to ask you a little bit about your brain baby.
Please.
So why did you want to start this vlog podcast here, hybrid method that we're doing,
A couple of reasons. The primary reason is that I have often felt like there are lots of avenues in the world through which to hear an artist's music, be that streaming services, album sales, live shows, right? And that not as frequently is there an opportunity or way to get to know the artists themselves directly. There are, again, concert series, things of that nature. And of course we have social media, but, we know how limited of a sort of view social media gives us out of the spectrum of who an artist is. So I thought that it would be really cool to have the opportunity to sit down with people and listen to their music together and talk about it a little bit, find out what inspires them, find out what their sort of process is like, if there's anything that they want people to know and understand about their art and their music. And, generally to just shoot the shit with cool people. So.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, following up on that, for the inaugural episode, what exactly do you plan on getting out of this episode? Like, what is your image of it? From my idea, we had something similar to a Tiny Desk concert meets inside the actor's studio. And that was just what my mind thought of when you brought the idea forth. But I would like to, hear.
Yeah. That's pretty spot on. It's like I, along with many people, love the Tiny Desk concert series. And so I thought, something that showcases artists and their art in that sort of manner, but is maybe a little bit more personal, a little bit more casual, a little bit more conversational. And so rather than attempting to present a performance, where it's got performance production values, my interest is more in sitting with artists and allowing them to share their art. So that, sometimes that might be just, let's listen to your music together. Let's look at your art together. Sometimes they may want to perform it. It's really just a way to connect on a sort of more direct level.
I hear that. That's fantastic. And I agree wholeheartedly with the concept. Obviously, that's why I'm here. How did you get into, looking at you as a musician, as a creative, speaking of which, this is our head of HR. This is
there she
Mittens,
is.
She will have a lot to say. You'll be hearing her voice constantly.
Yep.
As she will most likely be in a sweatshirt or on a lap and trying to get on the pads.
She, has a lot of opinions. So she's sort of our arbiter of cool. This is how we know, got to trust the cat.
Exactly. And any heavy-handed decision falls under the sharp claws and the soft beans of the Mittens.
Yeah.
And so, going back to you, how did you get into making music? What did that look like for you?
I come from a big family of musicians. Into my extended family, and growing up, that was always something that I was aware of. I was listening to music from a young age with my parents. They were really great about exposing me to all different types of music. And then from there, I got into playing instruments. I started studying jazz. I started studying traditional Brazilian music, a little bit of classical music, those sort of things, which ultimately led to sort of spending a lot of time playing in various different world music bands. I played a lot of reggae, played a lot of Haitian music, a lot of Brazilian music, and then ultimately that led me into the world of hip-hop, as many of my friends and peers and fellow music makers were exploring the realm of sampling and doing all of these things, which led to a series of long stretches of touring with friends and, all of that sort of thing. And then at a certain point, I sort of became the de facto engineer of the group. And it's like, you know what, I should probably get a handle on how to do this. And so I went and enrolled myself in some engineering classes. Ultimately led to an internship with some great engineers who I learned a tremendous amount from. And then, decided to take all of those skills together and use it to be able to produce music that spans across a ton of different genres. I might work on different things any given day, anything from, mixing to mastering to producing to recording. And I wouldn't have it any other way. So that's been my journey so far,
What would you say, I mean, being that you are a multi-instrumentalist, multi-genre production wizard here, what are some of the artists that most impacted your creative process throughout this long journey that you've had that have stuck with you, or even not stuck with you, but influenced, like a brief moment in your creative process?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because those things vary for different avenues of what I've done and what I work on, right? So there are things in the sort of realm of mixing that have had that kind of effect, same for mastering, for producing, and within each genre. So I can't give you sort of a very clear and concise answer, but I'm sure I can pull out a couple, right? So I'll start with mixing because this is the first thing that jumps to mind. And this is something that I've gotten some hate for in the past, but when I was first learning engineering, when I was first getting into mixing, a teacher that I had played me the song, I think it's called Sliver, by Maroon 5. And it's honestly one of the most incredibly mixed pieces of music that I've ever heard. It's badass, it's like the music is not necessarily my favorite thing in the world, but badass mixing. And from then on, it was sort of like that was the moment at which I felt I was able to separate the mix from the music. And that was sort of like, oh, okay, now here are these sort of divergent paths. It's like now I'm able to listen to the sound of the engineer against sort of the sound of the band. So that was a big, awakening experience, just that particular song, that particular band. In terms of, producers, sort of all over the board. Like I try to borrow from wherever I can. I try to learn from wherever I can. There haven't really been a tremendous amount of like, this artist listening to this one sort of thing, because I pride myself on my ability to work across genres. And so that also manifests in sort of pulling things from all of these different genres. So I have to keep an open mind always. So it's kind of like, it doesn't matter whether it's something that resonates with me or maybe doesn't even resonate with me. There's always something to learn and something to glean from that music that will make you better and will, change the way that you listen. But in terms of like, a lot of the Brazilian stuff, like, classic Chimaya, Black Bandihio, there's a lot of classics in that sort of funk stuff that is very influential to me in that kind of music, which you'll hear a little bit of at the end of the session today. Yeah, that's my very long-winded answer to your question, which I understand that I didn't really answer the question, but that's sort of my best shot at it because, that's the truth, is it just comes from everywhere.
Yeah, and I mean, with someone with as many influences as you, I understand that entirely. So, moving into this podcast and how we are introducing the podcast, and we're going to introduce you further in episode 1, but as we're talking more about the podcast and the creative process that led us up to here,
sure,
what are you looking to get out of this process?
Yeah, so at the very beginning I mentioned that there were sort of twofold reasons why I wanted to do this podcast. And I sort of explained the first, but I didn't get to the second. Felt a little much to get into at that point, but this is a good time to bring it up. So the second one is that, on a sort of personal level, I'm someone who has Sorry, that was the sound of my cat breaking something.
HR
director smashing things again. Clearly something upset her. Anyways, back to what I was saying. Gosh, what was I saying? I was talking about the second reason. So,
yes.
On a personal level, am someone who has a hard time often going out into the world and connecting with people. I hold, my personal relationships dear to me, and I have lots of people that I'm close with and enjoy working with, but I'm not going to be the person who is generally out and about, going out of my way to meet new people. However, community is such an important aspect of music, and it's such an important, need for artists to support each other. And so, given that I'm not the kind of person who's going to be predisposed to going to every show, to this and that, right? It's like, what can I do to both participate in the community that is artists, that is creative, that is that, sort of sect of the world, and how can I do that in a way that also supports my fellow artists? And so it felt like this, is an opportunity to meet people, to build genuine human connection with other artists, and also a way to give people a platform to talk about whatever the hell they want to talk about, to share whatever it is that they want to share. And so, I look forward to that. That's the sort of big second thing that fueled the desire to create this.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and I understand that entirely as someone who can't drink because I can't digest the alcohol. Yeah. And is just genuinely a morning person.
Sure.
It's been
Same.
It's been very hard to support art in the last decade when I have kind of removed myself from the nightlife. And then you end up feeling a guilt because you're not going to your friends' shows. Yep. So you try to promote them on social media, but then social media has been decimating the ability to promote the shows. Right. And so it is, I like that concept of just being able to support the musicians in an extra way. And I mean, let's be real, we can't always go to concerts, you know what I mean? Sure. That's only a section of the day, so I mean, we got to fill up the day with shit to do. So,
and honestly, every single time that I'm in the studio, whether it's recording, whether it's producing, maybe a little less so in the mixing and mastering because that tends to be more solo work, but it's like whenever I'm in the studio with people, and I'm sure you've experienced this, is like you sit around, you talk, you shoot the shit, you don't know what you're going to talk about, it's just shit comes up. Sometimes you get into crazy deep conversations, sometimes it turns into arguments, sometimes it's fucking funny, Yep. And I think it's cool to capture a little bit of that vibe where it's like, hey, we're sitting around and doing the sharing circle, like at the beginning of every single session where it's like everybody's got to hop on, pass the aux cord around, share what the new shit they're working on is. And like, that's a super fun part of the session, and so, hopefully we can capture some of that vibe, some of that moment that happens there and share it with, even people who may never find themselves sitting in a studio recording session. So.
Yeah, and I think that one of the, lightweight names that we had discussed was on the table that obviously ended up being cut was show and tell kids. We were all kids that grew up in elementary schools with, Heads Up, 7 Up, show and tell, all sorts of these things. And then, after whatever, 3rd, 4th grade, you never got to do that again. And, for all of us artists, I think that impacted us. Yeah. And we still enjoy that process of showing someone, telling people about it, and then allowing other people to do the same.
Yeah, I mean, shit, I get excited, about things, and it's fun to share them. Like, yeah, I was a show and tell kid, for sure. I always had something for the sharing circle every single week,
What was your most memorable, or some of the most memorable things you brought into class?
Dude, I wasn't bringing memorable shit. I mean, it was, important to me because I, get fascinated by odd things, but it would be like a rock that I found last week. You know what I mean? I'm, dead ass serious, man. Like a rock that I found last week. I think one week I remember sharing, like a square nail, like they used to use back in the day before they were rounded nails. You'd find.
Hey, if you could have a good story about it, though. Maybe,
yeah, I mean, it was like
soaked.
I was walking in the park, and then like I looked down and I saw this thing, and it was a nail, and or like it's a railroad tie, you know, or like one week they let me take everyone outside because I had sort of dug up a small section of our field, which, you know, mind you, this was an elementary school. It wasn't like a nice field or anything. It was just a patch of grass.
There's always a kid digging in the corner.
Yeah. That was me. You know, that was me. I can admit it. I was just. I wanted to know what
dinosaur bones.
I wanted to know what was down there, and I found some train tracks, and I started a little archaeology squad, and I like recruited a few other people to help me try and uncover these train tracks. So they let me bring everyone outside and show and tell the train tracks. So I guess that's the most memorable one. But yeah, otherwise it was pretty much just like I was walking down the street and this rock caught my attention. I really like it. I want to share that with you guys. You know, yeah, really for real, man. I mean, honestly, my studio and house at large are filled with them. These are all things that
Jawbone's pretty dope. What kind of jawbone is this?
That's a pig.
That is a pig?
That's a pig. Yeah, that I did not find. That I made. Sort of.
That doesn't count then.
Yeah. But all the rocks and shit, that's all, you know, just random walking around picking them up off various different places from all over. The pig was fun, though, because, you know, I work in a restaurant like so many of us artists.
Sadly.
Yeah, sadly. And I work in a French restaurant, and so they were, you know, producing a dish that used pig face meat, essentially. And so I came into work one day, and chef was cooking down a full pig's head, and it's kind of like, yo, that's tight. What do you guys do with the skull afterwards? And he's like, you want it? It's like, yeah, I do. Fuck it, why not? Like, I'm gonna learn something about bleaching and processing bones today. Like, that's not weird at all, I promise. It's just an opportunity to learn something. And, like, more luckily, one of the other chefs is a hunter. Okay. And so he's like, I got you. I'm going to teach you. Okay. He's like, I'll teach you right now. And he gave me a 30-second rundown of the process. Yep. And then I took that shit home in a trash bag at the end of the day. I hopped in the car with my partner and I was like, I got something cool. And she's like, it's like a fucking head or something, isn't it? And I'm like, how did you know that? She's like, 'cause you're fucking weird. That's why. I'm like, all right, for sure.
Yeah, as someone who's
the purpose? Yeah.
I'd be the cook in that situation, like boiling the head, and someone would come in and be like, "What are you doing with the skull?" I'd be like, "Get the trash. I don't care." You know what I mean? Like, but take it. Doesn't matter. The
reasoning for it is there's a traditional percussion instrument. You know, at the moment, the actual name of it escapes me. There's an actual name for it. Okay. But it is a desiccated, dried out donkey's jawbone. Okay. And with that one, they're much bigger, and you know they're much chunkier, and so because they're longer, they flex more. This one doesn't have a lot of flex to it,
and so you kind of slap it together.
Right, and the teeth, after it's fully dried out, all of the connective tissue is gone, so the teeth just sort of freely move within the jaw. And so on a donkey jawbone, you can hold it down at the end and slap it, and it goes. And it sounds like somewhere between a rattle and a vibroslap, if you know what that is. Yeah. But this one did not function for that purpose. I knew it wasn't going to. But it makes a fucking dope scraper. So I often use that in recordings for percussion. So a little bit functional on that, too. I'm not just a weird guy who wanted a pig's head.
Hey, taxidermy is interesting. As you know, there's a store in Portland of strange taxidermy. There's multiple stores.
I actually didn't know that.
Oh, there's
I mean, I feel like I could have assumed that to be the case.
Yeah. I'll take you sometime. There's one very close to here. We will go. That being said, this is not a podcast about taxidermy. It's a podcast about music. Not yet. Side podcast coming out soon. Below the Earth.
Below the Earth. We're really above the Earth, though.
Below the Earth. We're pulling it out of the ground and then we're preserving it or something. I don't know. All right. So do you have any dream guests for this type of scenario?
Man. I would love to sit down and chat with the the guys from Frank Moody. They're a band. I don't know if you're familiar. They do sort of like live dance music, very disco inspired, but they're just fucking great. And it's like one of those rare bands where I feel like they've just never put out a bad song. And like it's so immaculately produced, written, executed, that I would love to sit and chat creative process with those guys. There's I believe two of them are sort of the primary producers, and then there's a band. But I'd love to talk to all of them. But those guys for sure. And then, I don't know, like I would also be interested in talking to someone who's like real deep into the world of modular synthesis, because I know a ton about synthesis, but I've never delved into that world because it's a dark hole. And so, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there are some people who dive into that willingly, like, like Richard Devine. I don't know if you know who that is, comes to mind. And I really love the sort of generative music that you see sometimes on YouTube and stuff, where they've like programmed these sequences that will just sort of endlessly generate sounds, which I find to be fascinating as hell. So I think Richard Devine would be another cool guest to have on.
Nice.
Yeah.
What about in the realm of electronic music? Like if we like, let's just say we're fantastic with this podcast takes off. We have Flying Lotus and Diplo, and everyone wants to come on and they want to do this. We're a Tiny Desk concert, okay? Fantastic imaginary world. Point is, you have access to any artist. What are some of like the more high tier dream guests that you would want to talk to? Personally, for me, like Flying Lotus, I'd love to talk his creative process. I mean, that dude's done. I've been following him. I think I saw him in Portland in 2008 at like a New Year's Eve party. And then he got started to get really famous after that. Diplo, like I think his Timbaland, you know what I mean? Like some people, like they're obviously pop heavy, but their creative process and their ability to fine tune shit of all genres. Yeah. And make, I'd love to talk to some of that, obviously, but once again, dream scenario. That's why they're dream guests. Mike Dean? Okay.
I'd love to chat with Mike Dean. Yeah, he honestly seems like a cool dude, too. And, he's one of those people who sort of encompasses all of the things. He's a producer, he's an engineer. I know that he often like mixes and masters his own stuff that he produced, which is sort of a rare thing to happen. And yet, it's still coming out as these like, fucking incredible hits. Yeah.
In that same vein, LP, I think it would go like he has like a little bit of experience in the modular synth and doing some of the synth work as well as mixing. And I mean, it seems like he passes his mastering off, but like other than that, he does everything from point A to point Y.
I would also love to chat if I had unlimited access. I would find it interesting to chat with a like big pop producer, someone like Max Martin. Because it's like I'm unfamiliar with what that exact workflow looks like because it's just not really the kind of music that I work on generally. And it would be fascinating. There's a lot of hands involved in that sort of stuff, production teams, and so I'd be interested to talk with him about like what is your process of like how do you conceptualize these things? What parts do people play in it, and like how does that change the creative process?
There was an article, and I can't remember what publication, but I think it was like following a Rihanna song from like start to finish. Okay. And it was like a multiple year process going through like writing teams and like all of these different things, and it was just like wow, a lot of people think that pop music just happens so quickly, but the immense amount of calculation that goes into a lot of this music, and it's like, oh well, this is.
It's very carefully considered.
Very calculated. Yeah. I kind of, as much as I love a lot of pop music, whether it's, even some Adele or some Dua Lipa, you know what I mean? I can really enjoy like some of the newer pop stuff. Yeah. But I do miss the organic nature and like the flaws that come with humanity. Yeah. It's kind of one of those things where it stems into like music is kind of a reflection of like beauty right now, where it's like beauty has become homogenized as well as like the sound of music has become homogenized. And so it'd be interesting to talk to someone like, like Rick Rubin even, who obviously
that would be an interesting conversation.
Started out in a completely analog world and got to, and gets to work with people in this genre, and someone like him who has done everything from Metallica to fucking Red Hot Chili Peppers to Kanye West, just an absurd amount of artists, Beastie Boys. And that dude just seems like he would be very chill to be around. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he seems like a pretty zen individual.
Or he would be very frustrating. I feel like it'd be like one of the two. It'd be like, dude, Rick, I'm trying to ask you what you want.
Answer
what
the
kind
damn
of goddamn
question.
sandwich do you need? Do you want
right.
pesto on the chicken or not? And he's just like, deep in some meditation.
Or he's like,
damn it, Rick.
The sandwich is inside of you. You just, you're like, no, I'm trying to get the sandwich inside of you,
the sandwich,
Rick. Like,
you need to remove the noise from the sandwich.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean? It's the sauce?
like,
what noise is this?
Find the essence of the sandwich.
You must get below the noise. Yes.
Right, exactly. But, but also probably more likely just super chill dude. So,
yeah, more than likely.
No.
Well, as we were talking about dream guests, let's go back to reality here.
Sure.
Who are some of the guests that we can actually expect to see on Below the Noise here in the future? Like some of the people that we know that we're already going to come through, some artists that we have connections and communication with, enjoy their process and plan on showcasing here in the upcoming future.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've got a handful of people sort of lined up. We've got your buddy Wisdom. We've got, myself. I'll be doing a few throughout the season, different iterations of different styles of music. We're going to have a wonderful rapper from down in the Bay Area named Hamza. He's going to either come up or, dial in and do an interview with him. He's doing some really incredible music these days. We're going to bring out the sort of guy who got me into both hip-hop producing and also toured with extensively, Mr. Durazo. And, he's an interesting guy because we're going to get the opportunity to talk about some of the earlier days of YouTube producer performance videos because he was big heavy into that. So, that'll be an exciting talk. There are some other folks that I haven't yet reached out to, but are in the sort of orbit that I would like to talk to as well. Guys like, Slurgeon, Diet Doom,
Joey Mousepad.
Joe Mousepad. Yeah. A lot of fools who are kind of in the orbit, I'd love to get Omari Jazz in here to talk. So
Golden Beats as well.
Golden Beats.
We'll have him here through
Arliss
as well. The plan right now, as we have a lot of connections to the Bay Area, to Seattle, to Portland, and a little bit in Vancouver and a lot of the West Coast. And so more than likely it's going to start out as a West Coast thing and begin to expand as we branch out.
Yeah.
But we got some roots in Brooklyn, so we'll also have sometime in early June, I'd say, we'll probably have Mad Shroom MC come on here and showcase some of his stuff as he's touring.
Sure.
And we theoretically could get my friend Mostafa, who is on tour, lives in Egypt right now.
Nice.
And
nice.
But he's touring the Northwest and fantastic human
the conversation corner is open to all, It's like, slide through Portland, come sit down, have a chat, talk about your art. Let's do it.
Yeah, and any touring artists, as they're coming through, please, hit us in the DMs, etc. If you want to showcase your art, you want to collaborate, etc. That's what we do here at Below the Noise, is we showcase art. And as long as we could fit it into our schedule, we'll fit it into our schedule. So, that being said, here from myself, Colin Cassard, from Alex Riddle, we would like to say thank you for tuning into the first episode of Below the Noise. Alex, is there anything you want to say on the back end?
Thanks for rocking with us. I'm really looking forward to this. I think that it's going to be a really cool exploration, and I hope that people enjoy it. And I hope that if people have suggestions for artists that they think are, criminally underrated or otherwise in the Pacific Northwest area, drop us a line, let us know. We'd love to get people we don't already know on the pod as well. So, let's do it. I'm excited. Yep.
This is not just for us and our friends. This is for art in general. And so we want to do our part. So I want to say thank you for tuning in.
Yeah, thank you.
Our head of HR is down here sitting on the light. So if you're wondering why it got darker at any point in time, it's because she's laying on the hot light, and because she's a mitten.
Yeah.
And so on that note,
there we go.
There we go.
She's just going to go right back.
Yeah, she's just going to go right back. But that being said, thank you for coming into or tuning into Below the Noise. Once again, Colin Castard, Alex Riddle. We're going to tune one more Brazilian jazz. You intro the song.
Sure.
We're going to tune one more.
Yeah. So I make a lot of dance music, and I also, as I was talking about earlier, love Brazilian music, and have played a lot of that. And so
it's not just jazz; it's Brazilian.
Yeah, it's not just jazz; it's Brazilian, and it's more Brazilian funk. And actually, for this particular song, it's a blend of a few different things. I'm not gonna get super deep into the details of the remixer stuff. I'll put some information in the description, but wanted to mash together something kind of dance house a little bit, and then also paying kind of an homage and nod to some of the sort of funky danceable Brazilian music from the 70s. So there's sort of some of that percussion in there, and then played a lot of new instruments on it, and sort of mashed together with some, Yoruban chanting. So hear a little bit of that as well. But yeah, sort of an homage to, my interpretation of dance music blended with very, very deep roots Brazilian music, blended with Brazilian funk, blended with Latin Grammy winner,
Oh shit!
All right, well, here we go.
Nada me hace tanta falta como